Hi there. Welcome to Conservation Conversations. This is where we dive deep into the trials and triumphs of conservation in Africa. And on this journey, we'll be dissecting Africa's conservation challenges and uncovering some really cool homegrown solutions. I'm your host, Elizabeth Gitari Mitaro. So this episode follows from our episode on mining rights and the rights of landowners. And we got quite a number of questions around how do I know that my land has any minerals on it? What does the Kenyan mineral map look like? There was a lot of conversation over the past 2 weeks around possible mining in Tsavo National Park. And there was quite a bit of hullabaloo with KWS putting out our statement talking about there's no mining in the park, so on and so forth. And so for this episode, which will be part 2 of a 3-part series, we're going to look at where the minerals are in the country. What does that look like? And we just need to figure out just how rich is Kenya, especially from a mineral perspective, as opposed to natural resources like forests, water, wetlands, so on and so forth. And Kenya is world renowned and quite often celebrated for breathtaking landscapes, diverse cultures, wildlife, fantastic sunsets in Diani, in Watamu, climbing Mount Kenya, blah, 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 the Mara migration, so on and so forth. But beneath this surface of these natural resources that actually attract quite a lot of tourism, there lies another kind of wealth, mineral wealth. And despite this abundance and the richness that can be ascribed to minerals, the country still faces economic challenges. And so today I want us to explore what these minerals are that make Kenya rich, some of them at least, and why this wealth hasn't actually translated into prosperity and the controversy surrounding the mineral industry. Essentially, it's a lot more like comparing, a person who is asset rich and therefore a billionaire because they own, 3 acres in Westlands, another 4 acres in Kitisuru, another 5 acres in Vipingo, blah, blah, blah. But they actually don't have any revenue flowing from these assets that they hold. We will discuss the value of our minerals as a country and the lack of value addition and what this means. We'll have a deeper look into the artisanal mining model. In the last episode on mining, we looked at how there are, proposals to change the artisanal mining model and how that is changing in terms of definition. And essentially the suspected mining activities in our national park as well. So let's dive into it. So there are a number of minerals that Kenya is, quote unquote, known for that I want us to review. So right at the top of this list of minerals that Kenya is known for, let's start with gold. And a lot of people, when you think gold, obviously you think Eastleigh, where you can get it for, I don't want to say cheap, but a lot more affordable than other areas in terms of retail. You think about the coast, where you can get some really good prices per gram. For example, in Old Town Mombasa, so on and so forth. You also think about Dubai, where the glitz and the glamour of it. But right here in our country, there are mineral deposits in Kakamega, Migori, and Narok counties, gold deposits at that. What is the probable daily production rate? Approximately 24 kilograms per day from the artisanal mining in areas like Migori and Kakamega. And I'm sure we've seen quite a bit of some of this. How do you mine for gold artisanally, and the passing of the ore through water and cleaning it and so on and so forth. What's the market value for gold? at average about 9,000 shillings per gram. And so when you convert the 24 kilograms per day from artisanal mining, that brings you to about 216 million shillings a day that can be earned from these counties from the mining of gold. And we're talking about artisanal mining, not even large-scale commercial mining. Some of the key challenges within this value chain is the middleman effect. Most of the people who run and own the artisanal mines do not actually own the land, they lease it. Number two, very poor working conditions of the actual miners, and obviously a lack of proper equipment. So there's quite a bit of value that can be harnessed if you're talking about, at a very bare minimum, 216 million shillings a day. Let's move on to the next. And our favorite from the past 3 weeks of conversation, Tsavorite. Now, Tsavorite is a rare green garnet gemstone that is found in the Tsavo region of the country, that is Taita Taveta County. And it actually derives its name from where it was found, the Tsavo. It was actually coined in 1974, I think, by the person who discovered it. And so when you look at value, it's actually one of the, in fact, not even one of the rarest, it's the rarest gemstone in the world. It's actually rarer than diamonds. It's easier to find a diamond than it is to find Tsavorite, which means it's highly, highly sought after. And it goes for about $8,000 per carat. Now, what's the possible daily production? Roughly 10 to 50 carats per day, depending on the mining site, depending on the conditions, depending on equipment, so on and so forth. So what's the market value? Prices currently, as of August of 2024, ranges about 500,000 shillings to 1 million shillings per carat. Like we said, about $8,000 per carat. And so if you have a mine that's producing about 10 carats per day at the very bare minimum, this is potentially worth round about 5 million to 10 million shillings a day. At the upper production estimate of 50 carats a day, you then reach values of 50 million shillings a day. Those are, astronomical figures that we're talking about. So those are two of the gemstones or minerals of sort of beauty and aesthetic value. Let's look at minerals that have production, manufacturing value as opposed to aesthetic value. And we can start with, let me use the word list of them. Maybe we start with soda ash. Now, soda ash is extracted or mined from Lake Magadi, and I'm sure many of us who went through the 844 system, know that soda ash comes from Lake Magadi. And what is soda ash actually used for? Two primary things. Number one, it's used in the manufacturing of glass. And number two, it's used in whitewashing jeans or denim. So the denim that what we call, washed jeans or that have a faded look, that faded look is actually achieved by use of soda ash. Now, and it's one of actually Kenya's leading exports for these two uses. A lot of it goes to China for the use in jeans and the textile industry, and quite a lot of it is also exported for glass manufacturing. What's the daily production? Maybe around 1,000 to 2,000 tons a day from the lake. Okay? What's the market value for that? So currently, we're looking at prices of about 10,000 shillings per ton. And so if you're looking at a daily production of about 1,000 tons per day, that would essentially be valued at around 10 million shillings a day. from the lake. So anyone who's in that business in Lake Magadi potentially, at the very least, is making about 10 million shillings a day. And then at the upper limit of 2,000 tons, then you get to 20 million shillings per day. So it's still not a bad, well, you can't compare it to, the 50 million per day for Savorite or the 216 million per day for gold, but still it's quite high up there. Then we have another mineral that's probably not very well known, that's called fluorspar. And fluorspar is primarily found within the Kerio Valley in the Rift Valley. And it's primarily used for the manufacturing of aluminium and steel, which are the two leading metals that are used in the construction industry. And especially aluminium, a lot of it with interior design stuff and cooking ware, and steel, a lot of it, steel essentially being a very, very strong metal used in construction. And so what does daily production look like from Kerio Valley specifically? Around 500 to 1,000 tons per day. Although this sort of numbers have actually declined over the past few years. And so if you take the lower limit of 500 tons a day, and so if we take the lower limit of 500 tons per day, we're looking at an average of about 40,000 shillings per ton. And if you do 40,000 shillings per ton with 500 tons per day, you're coming close to 20 million shillings a day. And so if you have the higher limit of 1,000, you go to 40 million per day. So the other is titanium, mined primarily in Kwale County, and we've seen quite a bit of conversation around the activities of the company Base Titanium within this county. And titanium is mainly used in manufacturing of paints and plastics and other materials, which is why it's really, really valuable. Currently, a daily production rate of about 5,000 to 7,000 tons a day, just only from Kwale County and the mining that's happening down there, with a market value of around 300,000 shillings per ton. And so if a company is getting 5,000 tons, you're not ready for these numbers, guys. That is potentially 1.5 billion shillings a day. So, and that's the lower limit of 5,000 tons a day. So every single day, there's about 1.5 billion shillings coming out of the ground for Kwale County. If you're doing the upper limit of about 7,000 tons, you now get to 2.1 billion shillings per day. And so you can see how this would contribute significantly to Kenya's export revenue. And this we are actually talking about, minerals that you haven't yet been added any value yet. There's no value addition that has happened. The second last one that I'd like us to have a chat about is oil. Most recently over the past maybe 20 years, 15, 10, we've seen the discovery of oil in the Turkana Basin. And this has a daily production of about 2,000 barrels of crude oil a day from the Turkana oil fields only. And there's information around who actually owns the surrounding adjacent land pieces and the land that this oil is actually being extracted from. But from a market value perspective, from 2,000 barrels of crude oil per day, global crude oil prices keep fluctuating, obviously, which is why we're always having a fight with government around, petrol has been increased, fuel prices have gone up, blah, 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 so on and so forth. And so crude oil, even with the fluctuating prices, we can safely assume an average price of about 10,000 shillings per barrel. And so if we are taking this lower limit average of 10,000 shillings per barrel, and you have a production of 2,000 barrels per day, we're looking at a potential of 20 million shillings per day being extracted from Turkana County. And obviously, there's a lot of issues around oil, extraction. And these issues and challenges around oil, almost all countries with crude oil deposits, have huge challenges around it. And especially in Kenya, there's conversations around tallow oil and, the fact that they have almost 100% rights over the project. There are also allegations around scandals and allegations of tax evasion, offshore tax havens, operational setbacks, accusations around environmental and social impact and misconduct, bribery, so on and so forth. And so these are challenges that we continue to face even when we have the potential of about 20 million shillings per day extraction from Turkana. And I think the last one that I'd like to highlight is coltan deposits that have recently been discovered in Embu County. Coltan is primarily used in the manufacturing of batteries, phones, computers, semiconductors, so on and so forth. And coltan values per day are about around 30 to 70,000 USD per kilogram. We still don't have the rate of extraction as yet because it's a recent discovery. But, with prices of almost 10,000 shillings per kilo, there is a significant income that can be earned from these deposits. And remember the last conversation we had when we were talking about the areas that these minerals are found. When you're talking about Kwale County, Turkana County, Embu County, Migori, Kakamega, Taita Taveta, so on and so forth, this does not mean that these mineral deposits are only occur on land that is owned by the government or public land for that matter. Most of these deposits occur on private land or on community land. And so it's very important to ask ourselves, like we did in the last episode around mining rights of landowners, how can we harness this potential, not only for the landowner to benefit, but even from a national perspective, specifically because minerals, as per the Constitution, are actually owned by us collectively as citizens of the Republic of Kenya. And so how do we create a regulatory framework and a policy and legislative framework that allows for maximum benefit, not only to the landowner, not only to the miner or the company that is actually mining, but even more importantly, how do we channel that money into the consolidated fund that would deliver key benefits to the country, and we don't have to go around, getting, to use the word that has been circulating, odious loans, like we are, loans that are actually not getting into the consolidated fund to help us as citizens of the country in providing public good. Let's look at the challenges in the mining sector and how we can convert the numbers in terms of the sums of money that we've been talking about, and translating that into the consolidated fund that will then provide some of the public goods that we're still struggling with, like universal healthcare, universal education, so on and so forth. First, we start with the issue of value addition. Almost all of these minerals are actually exported as raw materials without any processing in the country. Obviously, this is a failure around creating an enabling environment for the manufacturing sector by the government, but it also has a lot of influences from geopolitical issues and neocolonialism, where if we are able to be self-sufficient and we are able to add value to our minerals, we would then be exporting a more valuable product as opposed to a raw material. And this problem, you'll find it across a lot of across a lot of the sectors in the country. For example, even in agriculture, we are still struggling with a good agricultural value addition chain for our cash crops, for coffee, for tea, for so on and so forth. We will export at very low prices just to buy it at a higher premium, at a Starbucks in New York. And you ask for Kenyan coffee and it's a premium product. But when you're here, the export is really raw material, which then means that we have a lot less revenue for the country and a lot of missed opportunities in terms of job creation in the manufacturing sector. Additionally, there is a lot of loss of potential revenue for the country. And this issue of a lack of value addition especially is created by several issues. Number one, obviously a lack of infrastructure and investment in processing and manufacturing, facilities, and obviously policy gaps in terms of offering actual, sufficient incentives for local value addition for our producers. And obviously, we've also talked about the neocolonialism aspect of it, and it has some really huge links to geopolitics of the region and how, if we're self-sufficient, then we won't be able to get loans at very high interest rates from the IMF and other institutions, which then leads us to a dependence on foreign markets and other foreign companies for refining and processing. The other issue that is of significant influence in the mining sector is this issue of artisanal mining and the lack of facilitation of artisanal miners in the mining industry. Specifically, this problem starts with the definition of artisanal mining. Now, from the current act, that's the Mining Act of 2016, we see the definition of artisanal mining as traditional and customary mining operations that use traditional and or customary ways and means for that mining. This is proposed to be changed by the current Mining Amendment Bill of 2023 from artisanal mining meaning traditional and customary means to mining that is carried out by a person, a group, or a cooperative that is using mostly basic equipment and methods without any formal training. So we are moving from traditional and customary ways of mining to defining artisanal mining as mining that is conducted by basic equipment, by mostly basic equipment and methods. And number two, that the capital investment for the artisanal mining enterprise is not more than 1 million shillings, and that the vertical depth and exploration or excavation is up to 30 meters deep. So any mining that is more than 30 meters deep cannot qualify as artisanal mining, or will not qualify as artisanal mining under the mining bill or the proposed mining bill. And so this issue of small scale and often informal mining operations is very common. That particular mining encompasses a lot of the artisanal miners, especially in the Savo region, in Migori and in Kakamega. We also have sustainability challenges, especially with the artisanal mining structures and methods, for example, land degradation, water pollution. There's quite a number of health risks as well, especially exposure to toxic substances like mercury that is often used in gold extraction. And obviously economic inefficiency, which means you have low production rates and low profits because of technology, the lack of technology and the lack of formal support. And so there's need then to formalize the artisanal mining industry to provide training, equipment, and proper legal recognition and actual government support to improve the safety and environmental practices, and as well as economic returns. We've gone through the mining bill extensively in the previous episode where we're talking about landowners' rights in mining. and we've gone through the key provisions of it and what the potential impact would be, especially around small-scale miners, on investors and on the environment. We also highlighted quite a number of issues around ownership and consent, which is of a great impact and significance, especially in mining operations on people's land. Like we've said, a lot of these minerals do not occur on public land. They occur on land that is actually owned by individuals and owned by communities. In conclusion, we've seen that there is huge potential in the mining sector, and especially if it is streamlined in terms of regulation, in terms of supporting artisanal miners, in terms of actual value addition to ensure that we gain from this. And what I would like to encourage all of us is the next time we are talking, and the conversation around county level integrated development plans is coming up starting around September. And we need to ask our representatives at the county level, the governors, the senators, the members of county assembly, what their plans are to develop the mining industry and the value addition process from the minerals that occur in your own counties, and make a point of actually looking at the mining map. It's available on the websites of the mining ministry. It's possible to also have a look at that as well on the lands ministry as well on the website, to be able to identify some of those minerals and to continue having the conversation and to educating ourselves. And so that brings us to the end of this episode, and to continue educating ourselves. And that's all the time we have for today on Conservation Conversations. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really do hope that you've learned something new and that you actually feel empowered to take action towards a more sustainable future for all of us. Remember, even small changes make a huge difference. This conversation doesn't stop here. Please do connect with us on our social media channels at greenbrief_KE and at Liz Gitari across all platforms. We'll put all the links in the description box below. Until next time, keep well and keep changing the world.